Upen, your notes on a socially relevant legal education. When did you write that? What was the atmosphere like when you were writing it?
I was only 3 years, 2.5 years old in Delhi University, and the first thing we did was to do this workshops in 6 parts of India on socially relevant legal education. And obviously the purpose was to transform the landscape of teaching, research, and hopefully even legal thinking. And we got a lot of valuable inputs.
So just to step back, the need for socially relevant legal education. When was that felt? I mean, you must have felt it acutely at some point.
I felt it acutely as soon as I started. This was my first teaching assignment in India, and I saw with a degree of astonishment, if not horror, what passed off as legal education, which in several ways was black letter, as the Americans call it, or doctrinal education. So law teaching was meant to inculcate understanding of the grammar of law and the intricacies of the law as it is. A question of what law ought to be was never centrally posed, excepting in wayside courses, many of them optionals, like jurisprudence or legal theory or law and poverty. Now, nothing wrong with doctrinal work, because you need people who understand the workings of legal and judicial minds. It's very important to understand how lawyers and judges think. But I felt that can only be a part of the story. In one of the world's most impoverished societies, like India, one has to think of the social functions of law, or even the anti-social functions of law. So I brought my activist experience at Berkeley and Sydney and so on into a hopeful conversation about how we can move forward. And I was amazed that it received so much support from my seniors in legal education and pioneers of modern Indian legal education, as well as from the younger lot. And essentially, I didn't mark any revolutionary change, but it marked a change in thinking about how to teach and research law. And one of the short-term gains, and now it's enduring, was to say you have to have some social science-based understanding of law. So what is called, and that can only be attained by having conversation with different research methods. So if you read the pages of Economic Curricular Weekly or any serious journal, interdisciplinary journal, when it comes to graphs and diagrams and equations, the law teachers have to run away. But they are also addressing the idea of law in a different language and a different method. So following that report, we had at the master's level introduction of a course on comparative jurisprudence and social science and legal research methods, which still continues in most Indian universities, with pluses and minuses of local accent and grammar. From that, I realized the need to do a series of workshops for not law teachers but social science teachers on certain problems which can be studied by a combination of law and social science methods. So we had 3 workshops in the summer of Delhi on conflict settlement, on agrarian reforms and minority rights. And out of that emerged a climate which would favor interdisciplinary research in law.
Where were these workshops held, sir?
In Delhi. Then in order to make sure, because young scholars who write empirical studies of law may or may not get employment, because the hard-headed law teachers would say, look, this is not law, but this is soft law. So we held a series of workshops at University of Karnataka in Dharwad of eminent senior law teachers on teaching of jurisprudence. And that was my way of inducting them into at least not disvaluing this kind of work by their younger colleagues. So finally, the final point of this narrative is that I struggled with the Indian Council of Social Science Research to regard law as social science, the study of law as social science. This was not the case. So we held several workshops of eminent social scientists pleading why law should be regarded as field of studies in social science. And in around 74, 75, this was accepted as a matter of policy, which meant that younger scholars and teachers could actually get grants and support, not just from UGC, which is concerned with teaching, but for social science-based legal research. And finally, at the end of the road, when I look back at my Delhi and related experience of 12 to 15 years, we, for the first time in India, began producing multidisciplinary texts, research outputs, as juvenile delinquencies, prison, law reform, social welfare legislation. And some of this, in fact, have gone into actual law reform proposals. So not merely, there are two problems of legitimating a different perspective as co-equally important as the doctrinal research, without debunking it. It has its place. But the empirical studies of law, not in books, but law in action, we thought was very helpful. And following from this, in 1993-94, with a group of 11 colleagues, I produced 2 volumes of what is called Curricular Development Center Report in Law for the UGC. The first volume conceptualizes the task of legal education in a changing India and a vastly transforming India. And the second volume actually says, well, look, we understand that there are political battles, there are difficulties in proposing courses and so on, and getting them passed through your university channels. So we proposed a 200-page volume itemizing the syllabi and the curriculum for each of the courses, so that nobody would have an alibi. They can change it, they can transform it, but they cannot say we don't have a model curriculum or syllabi. So we gave the list of themes, said what are these problems about. We gave them a list of readings. We gave them a list of questions to be discussed in the class. There was no high polloi curricular reform. It was to the ground kind of reform. I do not know what has happened to that, but my friends tell me that they have read it, which almost means that they have not.
Oh,
that's what friends are there for.
Okay. I think Mr. Ram Jethmalani would have been Bar Council of India chairman at this time, and Bar Council of India being the regulatory authority for legal education in India. These efforts for reform, moving from the side of the academia, what was movement in the Bar Council of India like at that time?
No, the Bar Council of India was affected by the emergency. And when Mr. Jethmalani returned to India, was elected chairman of the council, and it was he who approached me with the idea of the setting up a national law school, a center of excellence, which we now call NLS. And I had just come, and there was no question of my leaving Delhi University, but I said I'll put my shoulder to the wheel, which meant so many things, which meant persuading the political elected members from various states in the Bar Council, to persuade academic colleagues, to take interest in this. It took me about 10 years to do that. And I was pregnant with the director designatorship of the National Law School about 13 years, the Bangalore Law School. But in that I realized that the bar claims a regulatory stake in Indian legal education. It is extremely reluctant to resource it. In other words, I asked them that I don't want to start a national law school on the Ford Foundation or other agencies' funding auspices. I want 12 endowment chairs, and each region in India has a hero. There is Radha Binod Pal in Calcutta. There is the Hari Singh Gaur in MP. There is a Sitalwar or a Chagla or a Dakhtari in Bombay, and so on. And you can endow, bar can easily raise a crore plus endowment from whose interest on the corpus we can invite eminent teachers. They refuse to do that, or they are disinclined to pursue it. And even today outside K.K. Venugopal, there is hardly a benefactor from senior lawyers in India, leaders of the Indian bar, which resources the law school. So in a sense, my difficulty in disagreement was twofold. One concerning their stake, moral, ethical stake, which they could only understand in terms of crores and multi-crores investment. And my second thing was that the national law schools must be sites of excellence, but also sites for equity. That is, the poorest of the poor students should be able to participate with the most students from the most elite generations. And for that you needed more money than the 25 lakhs that the Bar Council Trust offered me to run the school. So I hope that progress has been made on both these fronts. To put the matter uncharacteristically for me in diplomatic terms, where the story of the national law schools and now the entirely privatized law universities is for all to see. That's all I can say. But hopefully this is their promises to keep. And one of the difficulties they have is to attract the best excellent faculty. So you have an asymmetry between students who are internet and media savvy and faculty which might be media savvy, but which doesn't have the record of publication and peer group recognized eminence that they should have. There are exceptions, but this proves the rule. And this is a moment of introspection for national law schools and their sisters, other private universities, because unless they wish to become absolutely commercial enterprises, contrary to the original intention, who knows what will happen? Do you?
No, sir. Lots of talk about the second generation of legal education reform right now. Second generation legal education reform.
I don't know who coined this term.
Yeah, some people say it's the third generation.
The new legal reforms. Now, what are education reform? I don't know much about them. I've seen the vision statement by Mr. Moily and his ministry, and I've seen some excess known as the Knowledge Commission of the Government of India, which produced a report on future of legal education in 2020 or something. You can see I have not much patience for this kind of talk. I can't take it seriously, because what do generations signify? growth in self-reflection, wisdom, and capacity to serve the underprivileged. Now, by this criteria, there is no new generation, broadly speaking, of legal education. In fact, it's exactly the reverse as concerns tasks of social justice. In the UGC Curricular Development Report for Law, we said India needs both kinds of law persons, those who are technocratically competent and those who can perform the roles of soldiers for justice. This is difficult, but that's the only way to go.